Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is a returning guest. You may remember from a year or so ago. Gallo Chingon is back on the show to talk us through the world of dating. Welcome back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great and fantastic. I'm so glad to be here because, as I've said off pod, oops, hidden things, that you have been my favorite interviewer, and it's doesn't feel like an interview; it's a conversation. So I've been kind of hounding you here and there, like, hey, how's it going, buddy, on Instagram, and just glad to be here again.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have been trying to build my own style over the years. I just feel like you can get more out of people by first of all making them feel comfortable, and secondly, well, once you get people in a position where they're kind of passionately talking about something or they're interested, then it feels more engaging. I don't know. I feel like you get a better
Mhm.
interview that way because
Oh
I've
yeah,
done guest appearances over the years, and to varying degrees. Like a lot of them felt quite formulaic. It's the same questions. I mean, I must have been asked a question about me living in Estonia 50 times now, like as in like me living there, how I got into acting, stuff like that. And I understand that there are certain questions that you just have to be prepared to answer again and again and again, right? But with that being said, the whole interview itself, that's all up to the host how they choose to do things. Like every single show, I'll have all my research, all the questions written down, but whether or not I use them is anyone's guess. But like I will today, but you never know, because you never know where the conversation is going to go.
right.
Um, but this is interesting because we were toying around some ideas of things we could talk about,
Mhm.
and I wanted to keep it positive. I wanted to kind of use your expertise on certain things and my knowledge that I've gained experience over the years, but also apply it to something fun. Because we did toy around some ideas previous to this, and I was like, I don't know, maybe those are topics for another day. I don't know. But a big thing that I like to push is like positivity and trying to find the positives. Like I understand, like not everything in life is sunshine and rainbows, but if you can find positives in things, great. And I think the topic of dating is kind of interesting because it's changed completely, and really I would say over the last where we at 2024. So the last 20 years, it's completely shifted, and I feel like it's kind of dividing people really because you've got a lot of people that are embracing the technology and the different way of doing things to varying different results, and then you've got everyone else who's kind of seeing the problems with that and trying to do it the old-fashioned way or trying other ways. I mean, like for me, I'm not going to sit here and say that the internet hasn't been useful, beneficial in some way. I mean, that's how I met my partner. But see again, like I've just quick cliff notes. I met her online, but not through like a dating app or something. We just met online, chatting, met up. Oh, okay, we got chemistry. We click, and now it's classic dating. We go out on dates, and 6 months later, here we are. So I still very much subscribe to that kind of old fashioned. If you it feels weird calling it old fashioned, but that I think that's. Do you know what I mean? Like I just feel that that's
Yeah, no.
better. Like I don't know. Like I wasn't really sure how to begin this, but I guess I want to kind of. Is it right to begin it there? Yeah, let's begin it there. Like how things have shifted over the last sort of 20 odd years. Like, what do you make of modern dating?
Well, it has changed a lot because when I started dating, there was no internet, or at least the internet was for a very select few. And then when dating apps were created, early on, people were ashamed to say, "Oh, we met on a dating app." Like they would make up a story and say, "Oh, well, we met at a grocery store." Like it was embarrassing to say we met on this dating website, whatever it was. So this is back in the late 1900s, like 97, 98, 99, back then.
Good old days.
And then we then we transitioned to dating websites, and it still wasn't that common. It wasn't as pervasive until Tinder came up, until we had smartphones and made it easier to be able to swipe, which kind of I think led to the whole hookup culture that we have now, which makes it more difficult in dating because women want the next best thing. And it's not entirely trying to blame women. It's just kind of the what studies show over time that women set the marketplace for the dating trends, so to speak. And so there's two different places, but they mesh together. It's the sexual marketplace and the dating marketplace. So women determine whether we have sex, men determine whether you're in a relationship. And so the changes have gone from trying to have a single partner to more of let me have as much fun as I can and maybe settle down with the most fun person I have or most fun person that I found. And that doesn't work over time because people have this whole idea of it's my partner's job to make me happy, which is not the case. It's your partner's job to add to your happiness. So if you're not a happy person, if you're not mentally stable to begin with, you're never going to be happy in a relationship. You're going to be constantly going through a revolving door of partners until you hopefully one day realize, oh, you know what? I need to fix me.
You touched on something really interesting there, and it's funny because last night I was watching an old episode of Rick and Morty, and in that particular episode, they happened like some alien makes like an app, and like everyone's like, "Oh, this was a totally bad idea," and wouldn't you know it, it's a dating app. Now, the issue with this dating app is that it's like brutal in how quickly it shifts between like your perfect match, right? Which I kind of feel it echoes modern dating very well. To be honest, I was watching this episode and I was like, this is not dissimilar to what it's actually like. I mean, maybe it's not quite this slapdash, like, you meet someone 5 seconds later, you're already dating someone else. But in fairness, I mean, you often hear about people seeing several people at once. Like, I'm old fashioned in that sense. Like, I won't be talking to several people at once. I'll be talking to one person. But I often forget that in a dating app setting, you are one of many options. You are not the only option. Same if you're conversing on, say, like Instagram or something like that. Well, there's many people messaging this person. You're one of many. And then I hate that whole idea of like, oh, well, it's like a competition. Whose chat is the best chat? Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, as far as I'm concerned, until you're in a room together, that's when you know if there's chemistry, if there's something there. And like, I've had that before where people will throw that in your face, like, oh, red flags, you want to meet straight away. It's like, yeah, I do. I want to see if there's like chemistry here, because you can chat all day via an app, but that doesn't mean anything. You can't really get a read on a person, like I find texting frustrating anyway. Like, yeah, amount of times I call my girlfriend. I'm like, listen, this is a call. This is not a text conversation. This is a cool conversation. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are just certain conversations where it's like, this is, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a grandpa when it comes to texting, but there's something there. There's definitely something there. And like you said, like people are weighing up their options. They're kind of trying to find the most fun person, right? Now, I don't want to take away from people's fun. If you're in your early 20s and like you're just on the scene and like you never really had this attention before, or you're new to it all, maybe you're in university, like I get it, man. Go out there, have your fun. Be safe, but have your fun. The problem is the rules. I still think the rules have not been properly established. As you mentioned, there are certain apps like Tinder. I think we can agree is just a hookup app. Like, it's rare. You hear these stories sometimes of people meeting and falling in love. Very rarely. Like, my friend actually managed to find his person on that, and I was like, how? And he was like, oh, and it was really frustrating as well because at the time I was like really lonely and single and stuff, and he was just telling me this story and it's like, yeah, I didn't have the app and I got bored during COVID and I just added it and swiped a few times and then I found her and I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, what? This is ridiculous. And this kind of leads me on to my next topic is like, now the whole thing is monetized. So when it first came on the scene, it was a cool kind of concept, something different. Maybe I will say one positive about it is it throws people in front of you who you wouldn't normally see or know about because maybe they're in an area that's a train ride away from you or a drive away from you or whatever. Like in the States, I mean, Christ, you could open it up and no, I'm serious. Like, okay, this person's in another state. Maybe I go, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but, maybe in this state, I can't find anyone, but in that state, I will, like you're keeping your options open. I get that. I think it's good in that sense. But let's be real, things like long distance dating are hard. They're tough. It's not easy to make that work. And also, like I said, now they're turning it into a business. Now you have to pay to have a certain amount of likes and you're paying to actually be seen. Because if you're using it for free, you're not getting seen, which defeats the point. So there's all these different things that you have to traverse with online dating just to even have a chance. What do you make of all that?
So, so I just want to backtrack a hair. So
Sure.
just touch on the fact that you said, you wanted to speak on my expertise. So as far as it goes, my expertise relies more on in-person interactions and conversations like via text or whatever, but I still try to make it be in person. I don't like phone calls. I don't like text. I try to make it go there because that's where my background as an intercourse addict, I had to see the connection. I had to see what was going on to be able to read the woman, to read her reactions, to read her body language for what I would call green lights. Okay, yeah, she wants me to keep talking to her because X, Y, and Z. She's facing me. She's playing with her hair. She's whatever. Um, and so while I have used dating apps in the past, when I was using Tinder, they had the option to pay, but it wasn't like so forced upon me. And the hacks back then, we're talking pre-COVID, is essentially just delete the app, don't have it on your phone. Um, and whenever I would travel for conventions, for either for work or just traveling for pleasure or vacations, I would reinstall the app, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, all the dating apps, reactivate my profile, and I would end up being quote unquote new. And so I would
Mm,
get presented and I'd get all these matches before I even landed. So I wouldn't say that I'm from out of town or whatever. I'd always say, oh, I'm a Texan. I'm going back home to Texas. So I wouldn't specifically say, oh, hey, I'm just visiting. It would just seem like I'm just new to the area, new to the app. So it was me exploiting the system. And that's always been my MO, to exploit what I have, exploit my features. If you're just listening, Christian can attest to this. I have a very bad boy look. It's just prototypical bad boy, and I'm Hispanic. So I know that some women are going to gravitate to that automatically. There are women that, and then there's another aspect to this. So a lot of women would just naturally gravitate to a bad boy. They're not going to want to date them, but they'll want to have fun with them.
sure.
And there's women that won't admit to that, that they won't publicly say anything. Oh yeah, I want a bad boy. They'll criticize their friends for doing it, but will secretly meet up with me and send me a message so that nobody knows. Um, and that's kind of the multifaceted just nature of human beings, that we have our public persona that everybody sees, the palm. You have your hidden persona, that's the back of your hand that only your close friends can see that are around you. And then you have your inner persona that's off camera, that would be kind of like the puppet or the bones or the muscle in my hand that I'm showing on camera. If you're not watching, you're not going to get this. But, so there's three sides to every person. There's the outward facing public, the inner facing, your close friends and family, and then the secret person or version of you that you don't tell anybody. When you make up songs in the shower that you hope nobody's at home to hear you singing because you're making up stupid lyrics, or whatever it is that you do when you think you're alone and no one's listening. That's the side of you that very few people get to see, but then everyone else gets to see variations of it. So what you present and what you see with other people, it's just this ever evolving thing, which makes dating difficult. So you have to pay attention to body language. You have to understand human nature. And if you don't, this is where most males don't succeed in dating, because they're oblivious to body language. They never understand the women's cues. They don't see them. Women think they're being overt. She looks, glances, smiles, bites her lips, and turns away. A lot of women will tell you that's like, hey, come over here. I want to talk to you. I think you're attractive. Most guys just look at that as like, was she looking at me or was she looking at someone else? Who is this? So because women have to be aware of intentions, because from an early age they're getting attention. They're getting, when they start developing, they're getting attention from their peers and men. So they have to be hyper aware of what they're doing with their bodies. Guys, I mean, rarely get hit on to begin with. So they only know if a girl comes up to them and says, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" If they don't say that, they have no clue. Most guys don't have a clue whether or not a girl's interested in them.
There's something to that as well. Like, I could probably count on my fingers like how many times I've been hit on in my life. And honestly, every time a woman would approach me and hit on me, I was suspicious. I was like, is this a joke? Is this a troll? Is there a camera over there? Like, honestly, because you're right, it doesn't happen that often, but it's a completely different experience, I think. But I will say that it all kind of depends, like I would say I'm pretty good at reading body language, but I think there is a disconnect for guys sometimes because there's been times when I've met girls and that I've not picked up on that at all. Like, because there's certain things I look for, like some of the things you mentioned, like the eye contact, little things like you said, playing with hair, stuff like that's pretty obvious. But sometimes people are more subtle than that, and like you have a conversation maybe years afterwards, like, how did you not pick up on my cues? And it's like, because there weren't any. Like, what? And here's the thing, like a fear I think for a lot of guys is you don't want to. I mean, the cliche one is, oh, I don't want to get friend zoned, right? Which I think any self-respecting man, if he's really honest, is like, it's not really a big deal. There are so many women out there. Just move on. Like, honestly, just move on. Like, just take it in your stride. Be a gentleman. Um, but it does kind of knock you down a bit, and it kind of confuses you because sometimes you can be talking to someone, you can feel there's a connection there, and then they're not interested, or they were just being friendly, or they got a boyfriend or something. But I think when they were just being friendly, it's like, oh. And my takeaway from that was always like, oh, okay, I guess maybe I need to work on my reading skills. Like that, I've missed something there, you know. I will say this though, a lot of women do lie. I've noticed this. They use the whole boyfriend excuse thing, and here's the thing, that's totally cool because I get why, because a lot of it comes down to safety. Like, I've noticed something really interesting. It's like a superpower. If you ever want to make women feel comfortable, tell them that you got a partner, because then immediately their guard is brought down and they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to like worry so much now. He's not trying to hit on me. He's not trying to. And I'm not saying use this as a tactic, by the way. Like, don't lie. I'm saying like, if you've already got a partner and you want to put other women at ease, then yeah. Because as you said, like, women do get a lot of attention every single day, and you have to recognize like what's genuine, what's something to avoid and be and careful of, um, and then what's in between. And I mean, it's crazy to me to hear about, like the more toxic side of it, like guys that get like really angry when they get rejected or they take it really badly. And I think that kind of lends into like why a lot of women tend to be quite fearful of letting guys down, because it's unpredictable how the other guy might act. Like, for example, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was this ghosting thing, which just pisses me off to no regard. Like, I wrote a song about it called "She's a Ghost." um, Double entendre. I like it. It's clever. Anyway, but I get it. Like, I like to be fair with these things. Like, while it is irritating, you're talking to someone, you're messaging them, suddenly they start ghosting you. But at the same time, you don't know how that person's going to react. That guy might react. He might just, start getting aggressive, and now you've got a bigger problem on your hands. Now it's, oh, not trying to let this person down gently. Now it's, oh, I might have a problem here. I might not be safe anymore. So there's a lot of stuff that muddies it up and that you have to be aware of. Can you speak to any of that? What are your thoughts on ghosting?
Oh yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's generational, or at least I think it's generational because for me myself, I'm Gen X. So if I'm not interested, I'm like, hey, look, I I don't see a relationship with you, but you are fun, you are whatever. We can keep continuing to have fun, but I don't see having a relationship with you. And of course, they want to know, well, why not? Why don't you want to date me? Whatever. And I have, because of my background, I've seen a lot. I have seen so many different kinds of scenarios and situations you just would not believe. Like I've had just wild out there. I've had a Blasian dress up as a clown for me, and we've done some fun stuff outdoors. So, you know, if that's like just a random extreme and there's all kinds of variables, I have seen a lot. So, generally speaking, there's no amount of crazy worth what a woman has between her legs. Absolutely none. And the best way to explain this, because the guys are going to understand this. If you ask any of your male friends how many times they did not finish with a partner, it might be a handful of times in their whole lifetime, 4 or 5, maybe 10. And if they don't finish with their partner, climax, I would bet it's because they were either too drunk or they had, didn't anticipate getting laid that day and rubbed one out. So it's not anything on the partner that they didn't finish. It's just simply that circumstances don't allow them to. Or they have an ED issue, but that's totally separate and different. It could be pornography, it could be anxiety, it could be something else. But for the most part, not climaxing for a male is usually because either too many substances or they, handle their own business earlier in the day. Women, on the other hand, don't have their issues. Their problem is the opposite. They have to have usually have to have an emotional connection to be able to finish with their partner. And a lot of times, guys don't perform as long as they need to be able to finish. So the disconnect mentally for both men and women is that, oh, any guy, I can make any guy finish. It's not the case. Most guys will imagine someone else or whatever it takes to finish because, hey, their partner is not doing the sexual act that they want them to do, that they need them to do, that they prefer, whatever their fetish is, to be able to finish. So they imagine something else or fantasize while they're with their current partner, whoever they're with. So guys don't have a problem finishing. But women believe this thing, oh, what I have between my legs is great. It's not that great. It's all pretty much the same inside. The varying degrees is just what's the outside, what the women have on the outside. And us guys are dumb enough to believe that a hot chick is going to equal hot sex. And I can tell you without a doubt that is not always the case. More often than not, they're just a pillow princess or just kind of just lay there or do one or two things thinking that they're doing something special for you because they're giving you the privilege of being with a hot woman.
All
So,
right. I'm gonna chime in here and defend the ladies a little bit. I think this runs both ways. I don't think it's just a female issue. There's a lot of lazy as fuck guys out there as well that because let's be real, what you because I agree with your point about like the chemistry and like the connection and stuff like that. When you think about some of the best connections you've had in that regard, it'll be when you've paid more attention to the dating aspect and also like what your partner is into and what they like. And I'm talking like everything in the relationship, not just from a sexual perspective, but everything in the relationship. And you hear people talk about being satisfied, it accounts for a lot of different things. I often think that your sexual relationship and your loving relationship they go hand in hand. So if one is not working, then that will affect the other and vice versa. Um, but a lot of it, I think, comes down to communication, and I think this runs both ways. There's guys that don't take the time to do that are that they can't be asked, or they're just dismissive, or they're out for themselves. And I think on the other side of it, there's a lot of women out there that kind of have the same attitude. To be honest, they expect everything to be done for them, and they're not willing to give. And I just think it has to be a two-way thing. It needs to be two people given equally in different ways, but that's the crux of it. That's why you have so many people that are, quite frankly, not satisfied because they're not putting that adequate amount of effort in to get to know their partner, to maybe do things that they're not always sort of super into. Like, I think, for example, let's say your partner is into an activity. I'm not talking sexual, but like something that just bores you. Like maybe they really like, I don't know, NASCAR, and you're just like, no. But you decide to, yeah, I don't know. I just first thing I think of. So you decide, okay, I bought them tickets to see NASCAR because I know they love it so much, and you do that and you go with them. They know that you hate it. They know that you sacrificed for them. They know that comes out of love, and so that's going to kind of bode well moving forward. And so long as the relationship is that kind of back and forth, give and take, um, I think that does then extend to everything else, and of course it is true in the bedroom as well. I don't think you can be a selfish lover. There's a lot of people that are quite selfish, or just don't put the effort in, and some of that might come down to personality. When I think I'm not going to go into too much detail here. This is very private, but what I will say is that I've learned that you've got your people, as in people that you click with, and you can click with a lot of different types of people, but there'll be people that you click with 100%, and then there'll be people that are like, click here, click there, but not quite. And then there's people that are bad for you, fun, but bad for you. So it really kind of depends, I think, like where you're at in your life and how honest you are with yourself as well. Like, for instance, if you're young listening to this and maybe you're just getting into dating, or maybe you've been away from it from a while and you're getting back into it, I think it's just important to be kind of like honest with yourself. Like, what do I want? What am I looking for? What am I not looking for? And also being quite resolute about that. Like, I will not accept this. I will not accept that, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things for guys to do because they're so, generally speaking, desperate to get it in because it's been so long, because they have no luck, because whatever, that they will sacrifice their morals, their boundaries, their line in the sand because, well, it's not so bad that she slapped me in the face. She didn't slap me that hard, and I did make her mad. Did you really make her mad, or was she upset reacting to what you did? But I did like that. Essentially, my soapbox is what you were kind of saying is having that communication with your partner, because to have not only a great relationship, but to have great sex, you have to have a conversation about what you like in the bedroom. And most people, most vanillas that aren't into the kink space, they don't have a conversation of like, these are the things I like. These are things I will never do. These are things I might try, but I'm not really wild about it, but I might be willing to try it with you. And having that conversation on both sides where she tells you the things she wants, doesn't want to do, whatever, then you can have a more honest relationship in and out of the bedroom. Because, like you said, doing things of the reciprocity isn't just in the bedroom or outside of the bedroom, it's for the relationship, it's for the whole of what's going on. I have a partner that she loves the whole Trump drama. She's not political. She doesn't care about who wins the any race or anything. She just loves that Trump's, well, now that he lost whatever was in trial. And I could care less. I have zero concern about politics. I don't care who's in office. I don't vote. I don't care. But she likes talking about it because I'm the only adult that is aware, has a finger on the pulse of what's going on. And, she'll talk about whatever the judge said, and okay, fine, I'll listen to it. And after that, she'll thank me. Okay, look, I know you don't like listening to it, but thank you for letting me vent. And that kind of strengthens the relationship we have, because I can set aside my differences. I can set aside my pride. I can set aside whatever my issue is, that I really don't want to listen to this, but I'll pay attention to you because you want attention. You are passionate about something. And the same goes for me. Whenever I get nerdy about, you know, studying just random stuff about SEC, Security Exchange Commission, who is not in a bank or gives a shit about the security exchange or any securities. But I find it fascinating on how corporations just kind of rape and pillage everything that's going on. But I have no one to talk to except my partner, because my friends are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then we'll just get into an argument about whatever. So with her, I can have the conversation and just vent the same way. and she'll listen and I'll appreciate it. And then we'll go on a date and have fun and do whatever. So,
This is me with my friends when I try to talk about wrestling and they're not interested. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, I remember on my birthday, I tried to talk to my friend Josh about something, which I brought it up and it wasn't a wrestling storyline. It was something that happened in real life. It was the guy like choking out another guy, like real backstage drama stuff. And I was talking about like the business impact of that and why it's interesting, etc. And his face was just like, and I was like, oh, man. He did listen. Thank you, Josh. I love you. But yeah, that's a good friend. That's a good partner when they listen to you talk about stuff that bores them senseless. Oh my God.
oh, I wanted to circle back to the safety thing of women. And
mhm.
for a long time, I really didn't believe it because I saw it and I didn't believe it in a sense because, of course, women say, "Oh, I have a boyfriend," and guys won't leave her alone. And this happened to me and my wife. There were times where it'd be raining, and so instead of having her to walk in the rain, I just drop her off by the front door. She'd go into the bar. I'd go park and come in, or there wasn't parking anywhere nearby, so I'd park about a mile away and walk back. So I'd leave her there. So by the time I got there, she'd already have our drinks ready because she'd be standing in line. Um, and sometimes she'd hand me a drink, or she'd be the next person in line, or whatever. And there was a couple of times where she said, "No, I have a husband. I'm dating." Well, the time we were dating, we weren't married yet. She'd tell him, "Hey, no, I have a boyfriend, a husband, whatever." And the guy was like, "Oh, well, if I were your husband or if I were your boyfriend, I wouldn't leave you alone." Of course, I'd walk up, "Hey, what's the problem?"
Yeah.
And he'd see me and just bolt off. Of course, it helps that I'm 6'1", and most of the guys in San Antonio are Mexican, Latin American, and they're like 5'8", 5'7", so they scurry off. But it's just crazy to see how guys just don't get a clue. And you can still work around it, like you said about the boyfriend part, but sometimes the boyfriend thing is real. Other times it's no, not right now. I don't feel safe with you.
Mm.
I want to get to know you a little bit better. And oh, well, me and my boyfriend are on a break, even though the boyfriend is either non-existent or she doesn't care about the sanctity of a relationship. So,
I think it's completely fair. I mean, I don't. I think my personal opinion is honesty is best policy. That's how I live my life. But I understand why women feel the need to do that. I think if I was a woman and I felt unsafe, I probably would do the same thing, to be honest. Because that's the reality. You just don't know what you're dealing with. And it's a tricky one because, there are plenty of decent, wonderful guys out there. And unfortunately, all the losers and assholes ruin it for the rest of us. They make it more difficult, Like, look, when I walk down the street, women have nothing to worry about with me. I have many female friends. I love women. Women are awesome, man. But I notice things like you walking, it's late, there's a woman in front of you, she doesn't feel safe, she crosses the road, or she walks faster, and that's because of previous experience. Because there are arseholes out there, uncomfortable people out there. I've seen it in clubs growing up. I mean, look, I hate clubs anyway. I could talk about half an hour about why I hate clubs. They just suck. They do. They're over. All right, quick 5 second rant. Okay, so the reason I hate clubs in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, I started going to them when I was at uni, and then a little bit afterwards, and I was like, this is bullshit. You have to queue to get in, which I don't like anyway. Like I'd rather just go into a bar and start drinking, and have a good time. Like listen to some good music. But no, you're queuing up, and then the bouncer looks you up and down, and like a lot of the time, the bouncer's an asshole, and does things like, "Oh, I need to check your ID." No, you don't. I'm quite clearly overage. You're just being a dick. And other times it's like, "Oh, sorry, you're not wearing the right trousers, or you don't have the right look about you." And it's like, I just want to go in there and dance, man. What's the big deal? Just let us in. And then if you do get let in, then maybe you've paid an entrance fee, 10, 15, £20. I remember one time I went in one place because my buddy wanted to go in there for his birthday. We paid £25 to get in, and it was shit. I remember like, we paid for this? What is this shit? And okay, the reason I brought this up is that, the general kind of complexion age wise in a club is like 18 to 25. You will get older people now and again, but
18?
18 to 20. Well, okay, so
What's the drinking age in
18.
UK?
18,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
All right.
different. Yeah,
Okay.
I know it's 21
Gotcha.
over there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I personally think it should be 21 as well. That's just my personal opinion, but um, we do have things like, okay, we have a law here and a license thing which is challenge 25. So although you have to be 18 to drink, um, it's kind of like a safety net thing to just, because if they look under 25, you know what I mean, like some people look older for their age, and it's just a kind of safety net thing. But anyway, that's your typical age complexion in a club, is 18 to 25. But then you do get a few people in their 30s and stuff, and that's fine. It's just you have to be prepared for the fact that it's a young person's game. Like I'm 31 now. I would feel deeply uncomfortable going into a club unless I'm going in with my friends. But then that's different. We're a group. We're together. That's cool. When you're like just on your own, you're trying to meet people. That's where it starts getting a bit weird. And if you're a young woman in a club, a lot of the time you're going to see a few guys at the bar. They're going to be mid 40s, maybe early 50s, probably your dad's age, and they're there. I'm being honest, man. It's how it is in
I'm in my mid
clubs.
40s.
Yeah, but I'm willing to I'm
Uh,
willing to bet that you're not a creepy weirdo around girls half your age. I would
no,
hope.
no. I know. No, I just take advantage of I don't rephrase that. I don't take advantage. I exploit the fact that there are girls in their early 20s that have daddy issues.
Oh
I
dear.
prefer women like late 20s, and that's even like that's pushing it. I prefer like 35 and up. But if I have to deal with the 20-year-old, I prefer her to be 28.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's just nothing to talk about. They're just stupid. Unless it's just strictly for fun, strictly just bedroom time. I don't have to listen to you talk. Okay, fine. 22, 22, or whatever.
Oh, this show is going to piss some people off. I can already tell. I didn't say that. Okay, now I didn't say that. So just so we're clear. But no, I mean, look, I like the fact that um, that's the same here. I'm very conscientious of that. Like, there's an age gap between me and my girlfriend. It's nothing crazy, but we spoke about it quite a few times, and at first I was concerned about it, and then I realized like actually there's nothing to worry about. So she's 22, I'm 31, and the first thing that went through my mind is we won't have anything in common. Like it'll be weird, won't it? And then what I realized is that she's very much just like my age mentally, which is crazy. But one thing we do recognize is that we're at different points. So like I'm still like, hey, you go out, do your thing, party, do what you need to do. I still do that, but maybe I don't party as much. maybe I'm like, because I'm slightly older. Um, but we're on the same level there, and like it's not too much of a crazy one. I think when it starts getting like to like 15 years or more is when it's like a bit of a problem. And I think the biggest issue, which is the main reason I bring this up, is the power dynamic thing. That's where it's problematic. Because if you've got someone that's quite switched on, they're aware of what's going on, they're aware of the situation, that's great. And they're aware that that's a factor. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that aren't aware of that. And yeah, they're likely to find people older than them attractive, but they don't appreciate that they can be manipulated and they might not even realize it's happening. I've seen this time and time again. And I think particularly for a lot of young impressionable women, it's something to be aware of. There are going to be older guys who are manipulative, who are looking for that. They're looking for opportunities to exploit that, and they're not going to be nice guys. They're going to be assholes. Um, I just think it's important to be conscientious of that. If it's just two adults consenting and everyone's happy, then great, But I do think like if we're talking dating as well, there's one thing between like having fun and messing around with people versus dating. That's something really to think about, because if you're dating someone and there's a really, really, really big age gap, like what do you have in common? And also you got to think about the trials and tribulations you're going to face. I'll give you an example. On TikTok right now, there's um, a couple trending, and I think the girl is early 20s, but she got with this guy when she was 18, and he's like, I think it's a 42-year age gap. So it's huge. So
Whoa,
he's in
yeah.
his 60s, yeah, I would guess, or mid 50s. Um, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, they're adults, they can do what they want. I suppose that's valid, but you can't deny that it's not a little bit weird. And there's challenges that, like, a lot of people are going to react badly to that. And that's something that you're going to have to keep in mind and be aware of and be mindful of. And that's going to probably affect your relationship in a big way. What do you, we sort of touched the issue a little bit, but what's your kind of opinion on age gap relationships?
Uh,
It's a
my
muddy one,
only
isn't it?
it is, and the muddiness I think is more of just the double standard, because when it's a male that's older, now he's predacious, now he's taking advantage, now he could manipulate. If it's a female that's older, more often than not, not always, but at least societally speaking, everyone's cheerleading the woman. Yeah, girl, you go, you get them. Yeah, you got a young one. You still got the body for it. You still got the this. You still got whatever it takes to be able to get a younger guy. Of course, young guys always want a hot, mature woman that know what they're doing. Blah 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 blah. So it's seen in the sense of, it's a win for the woman and it's a condemnation for the male. So that's my distaste for it. Is that the standards are double standard. Of course, that's almost everything. So, I can't pick and choose my battles. As far as uh, in general, I mean, I do think 18 is young,
Mm.
and the way I see it is that 18 is legal in the adult, but they are a baby adult. They're not a real adult. Like if
Yeah.
I
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair.
if even up to 25ish, like you're an idiot, you're basically 12, you don't know what you're doing. But again, like you said, your girlfriend 22, she's got a good head on her shoulders. I knew a 24-year old, 23, 24, like she was just about to turn 24. That surprised me. I was 33, 34
Mm.
before 35, and I thought she was my age.
Yeah.
I thought she took care of herself. I thought she was like, man, I lucked out. I got a 30-year-old that took care of herself. Her skin is perfect, no kids. Man, I'm winning. And then I find out she's 24 or about to be 24, and I'm like, huh. Well, it's the only difference is that she was just born, 10 years before me or 10 years after me. That's
This is
about it.
exactly
So,
how I felt with my girlfriend because when I found out her age, I was a bit like, I don't know. I was like, because I don't want to be like a weirdo creep guy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not who I am. Like but at the same time, like I couldn't get over like how she's like like anyone my age. You know what I mean? It's weird. I think we're gonna see like more and more of those as time moves on. Like, but again, I think everyone that gets involved in these just has to be wary of that power dynamic thing because it's there, it's prevalent. I mean, I catch myself sometimes with it. Like, for instance, with like giving like advice, because like I've been living on the planet longer than my partner, so I can sort of give her the benefit of like, hey, well, this is what I did at this age or when I was dealing with this. Um, but I try to do it in a kind of like take it or leave it way, not like a you don't know nothing, this is what you should do way, but more kind of like a, hey, here it is for what it's worth kind of thing. And I think that's kind of
yeah.
like a healthier way to go about it. But I think there's a lot more guys that you hear about out there or girls where they'll try to kind of bombard their younger partner with that stuff and just be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Da, 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 da. You need to do this, and that's dangerous. That's problematic.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, that excuse me. I totally agree with that. Of course, my dynamic is different because again, I very jaded, very cynical with my experience as an intercourse addict and having spent almost, oh shit, over shit. It's been 20 years. 20. Fuck, I'm old. I spent 25 years in the kink space, so I'm a dom. So normally I do have that commanding role of like, this is what you're going to do. And if not, it's not so much of do this or broken up with, like either do it this way or you're going to get a punishment. And it's more often than not a punishment. But for the most part, they like, oh no, that makes sense. Because I don't just say do this because I say so. You're going to do this because this has happened to me in the past. This is the problems that you're going to see. And when I explain it that way, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, no. And sometimes they're just want to do it their own way because they know better because they're, young and 24, 23, whatever, and think they know the world because I'm an old man and don't know what I'm talking about because the world's changed. But men and women dynamics rarely change. The way we interact or the way we meet each other changes, but the relationship itself rarely does for a healthy one.
Yeah, it's interesting that because you do. I mean, we are seeing different matchups now, different types. Obviously like gender um, differences and stuff, and non-binary people, trans people, etc. Like the world has changed, but I think you're right that the dynamics of relationships, you can see a lot of things that are cyclical is the right word, but like things that repeat themselves. Like there'll always be, for example, a partner in the relationship who is slightly more dominant than the other. It might manifest itself in different ways. And I know some people will disagree with me and be like, oh no, we're totally, completely equal. And it's like, probably what your relationship is you take turns, as in like that, because I've seen that before where people kind of swap the role of like who is the more dominant one. And I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret that as well. They automatically think it's a sexual thing, and it's like not necessarily. It can be who is kind of leading things sometimes. Um, like my in my personal opinion, like I like it to be back and forth, but like okay, well, you know more about this thing, so you can kind of take the lead. Like I think in a healthy relationship, it's like that. You recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you work together on it. But um, there are just so many dynamics out there, and I wouldn't say that they're necessarily right or wrong. As long as it's healthy and no one's kind of being abused or anything like that, then it's just how people come together and yeah, those dynamics that rarely change. You're right. It's an interesting one that, but I do think also relationships are kind of like an echo of what society is as well. In many ways, like they with how they change, it tends to be reflective of what's going on in society at the time. So, like for example, the classic like nuclear family thing,
Hmm.
it still does exist, but it's not like the favored thing. If anything, like right now, there's a lot more polyamorous relationships, polysexual relationships, people exploring. I'm seeing a lot more stories of people, for example, having been married for a long time and now suddenly they're opening up their relationship. I have a friend who had something similar where, they were together committed for 2 years and then they decided to open up their relationship. And that represents a shift in society. I think that represents maybe, this kind of leads me to my next question, the idea of like, is this the death of monogamy, or are we just seeing a shift in like what's available? So people are realizing there's more options than just monogamy. Like, what would you, what are your kind of opinions on monogamy and also polyamorous and polysexual relationships?
So yeah, with poly, I think with most people that are jumping into it, um, just think, oh, for guys, think, oh, I'm gonna get more sex, I'm gonna have more women, I'm gonna get to do X, Y, or Z and have the fun, or eat my cake and have it too. Um, if it's the guy that's leading it, if it's a woman leading it, I believe she's already getting attention from someone and she wants to quote cheat without cheating. I'm not saying this is always the case. I'm just saying usually, um, they don't want to lose what they have, but still have their fun. And in other cases, it could be a genuine interest that they, however they grew up, they saw their parents' relationship and don't want to end
Right.
up being divorced. They don't want to end up repeating a pattern. And so they want to do something new. Um, and it's relatively new for vanillas for people that are not in the kink space, and this isn't kink shamer making fun of them, is just it's something that it would be better if they had a mentor to kind of guide them on what to expect, or even with the therapist. Doesn't necessarily have to be a kinkster to teach them, but have someone kind of guide them with what to expect, because there's going to be feelings of jealousy, feelings of whatever. And feelings are never wrong. It's how you express your feelings that's going to get you into trouble. You know, getting jealous or angry that your partner does something. Oh yeah, no, I don't like it when you do X, Y, or Z. Okay, but did you have a conversation with your partner before she did X, Y, or Z, or he did X, Y, or Z? And again, that comes into the communication part, where it's been a buzzword since COVID, and people don't take into account that you have to understand communication, not just speak and get your point across. You got to make sure that your point is understood and you're understanding the conversation that you get back. So, as far as the whole non-monogamy thing or polyamory thing, my wife and I practiced ethical non-monogamy, which essentially is just hall passes. If ever I went out of town, she went out of town, we could do whatever we wanted, with whoever we wanted, as long as it didn't become a relationship. Because that the relationship was for us. The hall passes was just for fun, for sex, because we both were had a high sex drive, and we would get kind of frustrated after 2 or 3 days of not doing anything. So it was just more of like a stress relief. Let's just have fun. Let's do whatever we want. But more often than not, it would be her bringing other women for both of us to play with, and she just preferred being dominant with women, or both of us being dominant with the woman. And so it just depends on the relationship. And again, it comes down to having that honest conversation of what you want to do, what you're open with, and what you're willing to try. And I think some people put up with these relationships not because they want it, but because their fear of losing their partner, their fear being alone, or having trouble finding someone else to the caliber they think that they have their partner right now.
It's interesting that like how different everyone is, because the question I was thinking of teeing up there to you is, how are you not bothered that your partner is sleeping with other people? But then it's like it's a different mentality, it's different types of people. Like I know that me and you are very different in so much as like for me, if my partner slept with other people, it would break me. Like it would be like a scene from like a, tragic movie where the guy is just like heartbroken to the point of like, oh, what's the point of living anymore? But like, yeah. But and I know that's like really over the top dramatic, but that's I've accepted that I am just that way inclined. Um, and there's different types of people, and we all kind of hardwired in a different way. And I think a lot of the time with that, if we're honest with ourselves, I think it makes our lives a lot easier. To be honest, if you
Oh
go
yeah,
like,
I wasn't jealous. I didn't want to know the details. Like, okay, another guy, great. Another woman, what happened? What was she wearing? What did she look like? So, and with her, she was the same way. She wanted to know everything that I did with the woman. So there's still varying degrees. Like I was okay with it to an extent. I didn't want to know. Um, my only rule was that it wasn't any males in our friend circle. Like it could be anyone, just as long as it wasn't a friend that we had, or in our bed. Like that was it. And her rule with me was that she didn't want it to be with any. We were both in roller derby, so she didn't want it to be with any actively rostered teammates. So anyone else was free game, just as long as someone that she didn't play roller derby with. Because women can be highly competitive in the sense of, oh yeah, well I had your man, and cause some discord while they played. So again, there's varying degrees of that openness. Like you have to be honest, like you said, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with your partner. And when you meet a boundary and realize, oh, you know what, I'm not okay with that, you have to express it to your partner. Hey, I'm not cool with this. I don't want to see it, or I don't want to know about it, or I want minimal details, whatever it is that you think you're okay with. Or, you know what, I want to close the relationship or end it. Like I can't deal with it.
yeah, that's a sensible way to approach it. I think like keeps we keep going back to that theme of communication. Really, I think that really is the key to it all. If you're honest and open and clear about what you want, surprise, surprise, you're going to have less problems. One thing I will say though, just sort of putting a bow on this part of the conversation, is that when I looked into like what polyamorous and polysexual relationships were, because I only discovered this a few years ago. You educate yourself, you learn about things. I was like, I understood the idea of polysexual. It made sense. Like you have a partner, but maybe you sleep with other people and you're honest about that, but you still have your core relationship. Like that made sense. But polyamory, I've met people who say can make it work. To me, it sounds like a headache. One relationship is enough. I can't imagine like you hear stories like people living in the same household and there's like three or four couples and they're all getting with each other and they all have like individual relationships with each other. I couldn't imagine that, like having three, four relationships at once. That just sounds like a nightmare. Like just way too much going on, way too many things to consider, way too many opportunities for like there to be accidental crossed wires and stuff. Like just how do you even approach
I
that?
so I do that in a sense. Now that I think
Okay.
about it, it's not so living in one household. I think would be too much. I don't think I could do that. But my a partner of mine, um, she's into the poly uh, Mormons, sister
Poly
wives.
Mormons.
Yeah, so there's oh yeah, Mormons was yeah, Mormons back in the day were polygamists and they'd have multiple wives, that's what they were, sold on. And then the United States government said, no, you can't do that. So they kind of are in hidden sex. There's one big one in Mexico. There's one that got busted about 10 years ago. In Texas, though they were based out of, I think, Arizona or New Mexico or somewhere. But the reason they got busted was more for defrauding the government, that they would, because they couldn't legally marry multiple women, so they'd only be married to one, have a spiritual or religious marriage with multiple other women. And because they were unmarried, then they could claim welfare, food stamps, benefits, and basically defrauding the government in that way. They have four or five kids each and getting food stamps for all of them and then just making money that way, whatever. But anyways, so she watches a show about these modern polygamists and, she made a comment, oh, you know what? You do a better job than he does. I'm like, yeah, I guess I could. But the sense of the way that I practice it is I have multiple women that I either talk to, sleep with, or date, and not multiple like dozens, just at any given time between 2 and 5, to varying degrees. And of course, they want to be the only one, and they get upset when they find out that they're not. But I have an honest conversation with them up front, like, hey, look, I don't believe or practice monogamy. I'm not going to be with just one person. I'm not going to get remarried. This is how me and my wife were, and this is what I expect in a relationship. I was going to have a main girlfriend, a if anything, the main girlfriend or the main person that I'm going to be dating. But something that my mother taught me when I was a kid was, whether you're with her for an hour or the rest of your life, make her feel like she's the only one. And so the problem is never that they feel like I'm crossing my wires and confusing them with someone else and calling them by another name or
Ooh, that's
misremembering
dangerous.
something.
Yeah.
And it really isn't that difficult because when you're having a conversation with them, you're you know their sister, their background, their whatever's going on with them. And if I don't know, if I don't remember, like, hey, what's your coworkers, whatever, because I might think of it starts with an S, but I don't want to say this other S name, which could be related to someone else. Sally could be this girlfriend's coworker, this other girlfriend's boss, this other girlfriend's sister. What's your sister's name? Starts with an S, right? And they'll tell me like, okay, yeah, and then keep having the conversation going. So if I don't know or don't remember, I'm not just going to blurt, I think this is what you were talking about, or I think this is what you're into. I'll get the clarification, but I am intent on them and I know the general details enough to be able to have conversations with them, make them feel valued and seen, and know they will know that my focus is on them. My phone is down. I don't check it. I don't turn it on. I don't have any notification. If a notification goes off, I'll grab my phone and silence it. I don't care what it is. If someone really needs to get a hold of me, they'll call 2 or 3 times, then it'll ring through and okay, it's an emergency. I got to talk about my son or whatever's going on. But when I'm with them, my focus is laser focused on them and they feel like they're the center of the world. And so they, over time, don't have an issue with me seeing other women because the time that we do spend together is our time. And so even though I only see them once a week for a couple of hours or talk to them once a week for a few minutes, they know that my focus is on them. They, because in a relationship, like with you and your girlfriend, how many hours a week do you spend together? Actually being together, not just being in the same room, not just on your phones or watching TV or whatever you do where you're just hanging out, but where you're actually having a conversation. I would bet that I have more in depth conversations per woman per week than most people, most monogamous couples do with their partner that live at home. Because you go to work, you come home, you kind of relax, you veg out, decompress, then you say hi to your girlfriend. Hey, how was your day? Okay, cool. Then you go shower, you go do your hobby, you go do whatever, you have a meal. At your meal, you might say, hey, such and such happened today. What's going on with you at work? And you kind of tune out because you're eating, you're not paying attention, you're just kind of half there. So I think that's the difference that makes it. And I'm not saying you specifically, just generally speaking, most guys, most couples don't have that intentional conversation per day. It's maybe a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, and this is kind of my whole point, though. Like I'm always very invested in my partner, and the way I look at it is if I can't be invested in that moment, I'll find the time to be invested. Because the reality is, yeah, we are busy. There's a lot going on, you know. That's just how it is. But I hate that idea of like, oh, we have dinner and then we're like barely talking and it's small talk. Like, what? Don't fucking bother then. Like, what is this? Or like, nothing infuriates me more than starting a conversation and the person's not like listening. Like, that's just, I don't know. It just seems pointless to me. But I get it. I guess for a lot of people, they live in that kind of sphere of contentment, and that's fine. I don't know. For me personally, I can't live life that way. I'd rather kind of do it all or nothing. Like,
Mhm.
either we're all in or we're not bothering at all. Um,
Yeah, and I'm saying I'm great. I'm not perfect.
no, no,
There are
no one
times that I just
is.
kind of veg out. Um, and this isn't to make anyone feel bad about their relationship, but that you should remember that your relationship, just because you're together, doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't mean you have to stop dating your partner.
Sure.
Like this is why a lot of relationships fail because there's no more for the woman. There's no more romance, and for the guy, there's not as much sex as they'd like, or there's not as much sexiness from her end. And so you just get comfortable and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to die here with her or him, whatever. Or she ends up cheating because some guy at work gives her the faintest little bit of attention. That just, oh, hey, you got a haircut. It looks good on you. And her partner, who saw her get the haircut, or when she came back, she says, "Hey, how do I look?" And oh, you look good, and didn't notice the haircut. But some coworker sees her 3, 4 days later and just uh, comments on it. Not even compliments, just says, "Oh, hey, you got a haircut." Not it looks good. Not I like it. Just simple statement. And now her heart's all aflutter because someone recognizes her, someone finally sees her, someone whatever, and inspires her to just um, do something that she shouldn't unless it's a polyamory relationship.
I do think though you got to communicate these things. I'm not saying that a person have to turn around and demand someone loves them or demand that they like make effort, but at the same time, like let's say that you're not feeling very, very good about yourself, maybe you're feeling down about yourself, whatever, and your partner's not recognizing that. I think it's important that you tell your partner that. You're like, hey, listen, you know, I'm not feeling this in the relationship right now. I'd love to see a bit more of this, and like if you can be adult about that and not get defensive when your partner raises a concern, this is key too. Because I think a lot of couples they can't do that. Like immediately, if one person says they're not happy about something, it's defensive, you get an argument, and before you know it, like some bigger problem has arisen where it didn't need to be. It could have just been a conversation, a quick 5 minute, and now we're working on it, and now it's getting better. I mean, it's uncomfortable conversations. I think that's kind of I think, do you know, the movies have done us dirty. Really, the movies have made us think that you can have this like
Yeah.
perfect
Mhm.
relationship where it's all beautiful all the time, and it's like, well, that's just not how relationships work. Like sometimes, there's periods where it's a bit more trickier. Sometimes, you got to work through things to get to the better stuff. I do think it's a constant thing. Like anything else in life, you got to keep putting the effort in and keep trying. Um, and so much of love, I think, really is just about consistency and matching that kind of effort. You know, you're not always going to be able to put the same level of effort in that you want to or that is expected, but you have to kind of try to find ways to make that effort where you can, like be seen to be trying. I think that's kind of a big part of it, Like, hey, maybe you don't have all the money in the world, or maybe you don't have all the time, but like when you do have that time, do something special, Or if you do have a little bit of money, like, hey, let's try something a bit different. Bit spontaneity, like whatever. Like often, I think that's the thing as well. A lot of people, you take like Valentine's Day as an example of this. Like a lot of people, I hate that. It's a Hallmark holiday. It's bullshit. But the biggest lesson I've learned from that is that a lot of people just don't take the time in their relationships to make that effort. So they feel on this big day they have to make big grandiose displays of affection to show how much they really love. And it's like a lot of the time, love is the small things. Like when my partner comes down and I see her, like there'll be little things like I'll make sure she's eaten. Have you eaten yet? All right, I'll cook for you. Like something like that sounds small, but like it means a lot because what does that tell you? Oh, I care about your well-being. I care that you've eaten properly. I care that you're having a good time. Like it's just little things like that, making a person feel special, feel wanted.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, fuck, you do that with like friends and family. Why can't you do it with your partner? Like, it's I don't know. I think, and a lot of the time when things start to break down, when you start having problems in a relationship, it's because like you don't see the point in doing that. Like you feel like you're not getting certain things, and then you're like, oh well, why should I? I don't get this, that, and the other from them. But it's like it's a balancing act. You know, I agree. Like you shouldn't be give, and not get anything back. But equally, you can't expect things all the time without giving. So it's you gotta find that balance. I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things you said. So with that balance is some people are okay with being a giver.
Sure.
They need to get a little bit back. But again, you have to use your words and say, hey, I'm not feeling appreciated. I'm giving, 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 and I'm not getting anything back. Doesn't have to be anything specific, like give me a gift or give me something, give me attention, whatever it is that you want. And this is something that I iterate with my partners is, hey, if there's an issue, don't wait until it's a problem down the road. If you don't like me saying something, doing something, tell me. I'm not going to get mad. I might get my feelings hurt. I might get a little bothered, but I promise you, I'll never raise my voice at you. I'll never hit you. I'll never do anything violent towards you. If you don't feel comfortable, if you don't like something I do, I want to know and I'll fix it right then and there if I can or as soon as possible. And um, if I plan a big date, hey, I go to pick up, female friend, whatever. And I have planned we're going to go out to eat, we're going to go do this, we're going to go dancing. And if I show up and she's having a bad day and she's like, I just didn't feel like getting dressed. I'd rather she tell me, hey, I'm not feeling up to it. Fine, let's hang out. We can watch TV and eat popcorn. I'm totally okay with that. You cuddle up next to me. We can do that. Whatever it takes to make you feel better. I don't want you to put on a mask and go out in public with me and be in a bad mood and not enjoy your time. I'm over here believing, oh, we're having a great time because we're trying this new restaurant or whatever, which is another thing. Don't settle in on your restaurants. Don't just, oh, this is my favorite place.
Mm-hmm.
Go on dates with your partner. Find new places to go to. Just you have the internet at your hands. Find a dozen places and make it a list. Okay, first Friday of the month, we're going to go to try a new cuisine. And on the third Friday of each month, we're going to go to our favorite place, whatever. Change it up. Don't always just find it. Don't end up in monotony. Don't end up in a rut. Don't end up in a pattern because then you're going to get bored. She's going to get bored. You're going to take each other for granted. And then someone's going to find someone new.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that as well is like people get afraid, like, oh, what if we try somewhere new and it sucks? And it's like, well, if you got the right partner with the right attitude, it'll be an adventure. It'd be funny. You know, sometimes it's funny when stuff sucks. It's like, well, this was shit, wasn't it? We had a good time though, and you make the best of it. You know, and like that's the
Uh,
thing. I always look at things as experiences. You know.
there is that. So I had this bad habit, and it wasn't intentional. It was just I'm scatterbrained, and it was after my wife passed away. So
Sorry
I
for your
just
loss.
would forget. Yeah, sorry. Thanks. Um, so when I started dating again, I forget my wallet. And I'm like, fuck, wrong pants. Like I just wrong pants. And
Sure it
she
was.
would, so it was, so they
Yeah.
would like, don't worry, I got it. And like, are you sure? Like I picked the place. It's a little more expensive than what I think you can afford. It wasn't intentional. My bad, whatever. We can go somewhere else. And they'd be okay with it. So wrong pants ended up being code for if we try someplace new and we walk in and we just don't like the vibe. Like there's just something wrong with the place. I'll just fuck wrong pants. Or
Ah.
she can call the audible and say the same thing, just real quietly, wrong pants. And then, when we get seated, you're like, oh, you know what? Just realized, I left my wallet, and then, we leave, and they're like, oh, okay, no problem. So, there's some places you show up and it's just kind of sketchy. Some sketchy places can have amazing food, but other times you walk in there and it's like, it looks like nobody's been in here for like 3 weeks. Where they're first customers. There's just like a coat of grease on the walls. And I'm pretty sure that their health inspection is a fail, but they're
Yeah.
somehow still open. Let's get out of here. So, that just kind of became a code. So again, try new places, have fun, but also be comfortable having conversations with your partner. Let them know, hey, I'm not okay with this place, or fuck it, we'll just have an adventure, whatever.
It's all about adventures, man. That's the fun part of
Mm-hmm.
it. That's the thing. Dating should be fun. Like I love dating my girlfriend because we just have fun. Like we just explore, do different things. You know, I can think of like a bunch of stuff we've already done, and I'm like, I can't wait to do all the other stuff. You know, like check this out. This okay. I'll share. I don't normally talk about my private life, but I'll share this because I thought it was quite romantic. Right. So it's my birthday. She's come down to see me. We're hanging out. We managed to catch the sun. It's really nice. I mean, Manchester, it always rains. We call it Rainchester. uh, and when, as we got home and we were heading home I was basically, we were going to have burgers with salad and everything. And yeah, I cooked for us. I was a chef Christian. Um, it starts raining, like crazy raining, like biblical raining. Yeah, like like Noah's about to bring the ark out, raining. Yeah. So, but we've got these really nice windows in my apartment where, for that, it's perfect. And we sat down and we had this food, and it's raining outside, and the lights are off, and I'm like, this is perfect. I remember like a week afterwards, she turned around to me and she said, that's my favorite moment in our relationship so far. And I was just like, damn, it was so simple as well. We were just eating burgers and watching the rain and chatting a little bit. That's what it's about, man. Those little moments that, that doesn't, you don't have to spend the odds to go out and have a good time. Like it's good, but I totally agree with your point. You've got to go out there and try different things though, because you don't know what you're going to discover. And you don't want to just do the same shit every day, like all the time. That's boring. Like life's about trying different things, like not just in relationship, but in general. Like, yeah, take the advice, guys. Just listen, listen, because we know what we're talking about there. I'll go for a few random things your way because I just find this interesting.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on pickup artists?
Uh,
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the response.
um, oh man. So it's funny. So the way I become aware of these distasteful things in society, I'll call them, is somehow I make a male friend, coworker, whatever, and they realize about my past or realize I have success with women. They just kind of want to know. And one guy, he was like, "Yeah, did you learn from?" I'm not going to forget this because the pickup artist name was Tyler Durden, based off of Fight Club. And he goes, "Hey, did you learn from Tyler Durden?" I'm like,
You mean
Fight
Fight
Club?
Club?
Like
Yeah, what?
I was fighting in middle school before the movie even came out. Like before, what are you talking about?
They wrote the movie about
And
us. What do you mean?
yeah, and then it's like, no, 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 no. He's a pickup artist, and he does this, and he does that, and blah blah blah.
All right.
And in a sense, yes, it makes sense what at least that pickup artist was teaching is he was teaching guys how to respond to every different type of scenario or
Mm.
interaction you could have with the woman. But it was my understanding of it was very mechanical, so it wasn't natural. It was just learning how to respond to situations to be able to get laid. Period. Like it wasn't about having a connection. It wasn't about getting to know the person, not about having a relationship. It was just what steps do I have to take? ABC, like the old dancing little placemats that would 1-2 step on how to do whatever little type of dance move or whatever, or to put your feet. And yes, it's methodical. Yes, you could get laid from that, but then what? You have no substance. You're not going to be able to keep that woman. You're just going to have an endless series of one night stands if you're lucky. And of course, you have to go through all this effort and learn all these things and do all this other stuff. And I was just, why are you going to go through that? If you can just learn body language and make her laugh, that's all it takes, really.
I
Learn body
think,
language to know whether or not you can talk to them. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're right. That so much of it is just reading body language, which, to be honest,
Mhm.
you read a few books, it's not that difficult to like, or you don't even need, just pay attention.
YouTube,
Just
or pay
watch.
attention. Mhm.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. You don't need to put it like this. I don't like a lot of pickup artists because they're manipulative and they charge crazy amounts of money to quote unquote teach people how to pick up. And here's a few things. Number one, don't buy into those things, guys. It's a scam. Number two, at the end of the day, you're not going to get connections through it. You're going to get, as you say, introductions. You'll meet people, sure, and I suppose to an extent it's good for your confidence. I have seen some positives in it, like sometimes they'll teach people how to deal with rejection and stuff, and I think that's a positive thing, particularly for guys to learn how to do, how to take things like a gentleman and not let it completely derail your confidence and to like, just learn how to take things in your stride. That's cool. And getting out of your comfort zone too. But as you said, like really, it's only leading you to opportunities where you can get laid. And I think for a lot, I think this stuff like kind of preys on desperate guys, because there'll be a lot of guys out there that maybe they've never got laid, and it happens, right? Sometimes it's just unlucky. Sometimes not around the right people. There could be a million reasons why that's the case. But in their mind, they might think that that's like their purpose in life, like nothing else matters besides that. And some of that comes from school. I remember losing my virginity like way too early because I was worried about being called a virgin, and it was stupid. Like in retrospect, I look at that like that's so pathetic. But at school, that's the mentality. It was like seen as the worst thing ever. And that carries into adulthood sometimes, and it certainly carries with a lot of guys. And I think if these guys would realize that just like having sex is really not that big a deal, like it's fun, sure, but in the grand scheme of things, like what matters more is finding someone you have a connection with. Like you can sleep with people all you want, but it won't make you happy. Like, I can tell you that much. Um, and with also, I'll just say like the whole pickup artist thing, or even just like casual dating, promiscuity, stuff like that. It's quite thankless, quite lonely, to be honest. As like it can be fun. Like if you're kind of in a headspace where you're just okay, I'm just out to have fun and have a good time, it could be fun, sure. So long as you're not lonely, you're not using it as like a crutch for something. Like, sure, go out and have your fun. Where it's a problem is that like I think a lot of people use it to find long term connections, and to find a long term connection that takes effort. That takes time to get to know people. Like I remember years ago scoffing at people who would say like, "Oh, I think it's better to be friends with someone first and then form a relationship afterwards." And to be honest, it still is a double-edged sword because that can really go badly. Like, you can be friends with someone for years, date them, and then now that's the end of your friendship forever. So you got to be careful with that. But if it's like a sort of a casual friendship and it gradually leads into that, that can be a lot of fun. That can be more meaningful. It may be even more exciting. Depends on the scenario, like how things unfold. But I guess my point, underlying point with all of this is that like it takes time to build a connection. And I just don't think necessarily that that's going to happen by you standing on a street corner trying to get as many numbers as you can and, you know, calling them all, and who knows, maybe one of those is the love of your life. Like, I don't know, I know that's super cynical, but like the way I was introduced to it was, I remember I was abroad with friends and a friend of mine was like, oh hey, why don't we do this for fun? And I just thought it was the stupidest thing ever. I was like, we were having a good time, and suddenly this guy says like, why don't we stand here and like start asking for girls' numbers? And I was like, why? What's the point? Like, you know, we'd already met some cool people anyway. And my vibe has always been I like to sit down in a cool place with a good vibe and just talk. You know, like I don't do pickup lines. I'm not going to say I'm like Captain Casanova or anything, but like, yeah, I like to talk. I've always found that's how I've been able to form connections with women, has been just talk, just show interest. Um, and don't immediately go for like turn it sexual either. Just, you know, if it's there and the electricity's in the air, like hey, jump at it. But you know, enjoy the whole evening, enjoy the night, and see what happens. You know?
Yeah, no. Train of thought. There's a couple
Okay,
things I
I can
want to
tell
touch on.
you. I know there's a few things I can
Yeah.
tell you disagree with. I'd love to hear.
No,
I'd love
no.
to hear why.
Well, it's not okay. So I don't think men and women can be friends.
I
Um,
disagree with that. Okay, cool, cool, cool. This is good.
and you know, it's the basis of that is in rephrase that, you can be associates, you can be, you know, coworkers, you can be that, but just friends without some sort of mutual hobby, some sort of, if it's not a specific goal, like you just can't go to a bar, make a friend with the woman and be friends with her, right? You just can't make a random female friend and keep her. I don't think
Why?
it's healthy, because your girlfriend is not, very few women like their partners, male partners, to have a female friend.
That's
And if
true.
they're besties for years, then okay, you've been friends with her since high school, whatever. But in the back of her mind, whether she admits it or not, or rephrase that, commonly she won't admit it. I've had them admit it to me because I let them know that hey, they're going to be comfortable with me. They can, you know, be honest, and they're not comfortable with my friendship that I have with my air quote sister. She's just been a really close friend, but that's because I'm an intercourse addict, and I can admit to myself that most women that I have friendships with is because I want to have sex with them or I want to have sex with their friends. Um, this one female friend is only because she stood by my side and defended me. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't raising my
Oh, I
hand
think
like,
you.
oh, can I?
Oh.
No. Oh,
But
that's
for
an
the most
yeah,
part, there's always some type of sort of sexual tension with the relationships.
right.
Um, crap. But I
Sorry.
mean, and it's not. It's just neither here nor there. It's not that big of a deal. Like some people say yes, some people say no. I try to avoid having female friends just because I know myself, and I'm going to try to get it in or with one of their friends. Um, but crap, we were talking about relationships before that, friendship, dating.
Well, I'll tag
Go ahead.
in for a second and just say like I hear what you're saying. I think I think you can be friends with the opposite sex, but I think that it's interesting because whenever I tell stories, say like to my partner about friends, if I'm talking about guys, you know, you just like don't even bat an eyelid, you just keep talking, right? But sometimes if you're talking about like a female, I don't know, I always feel a bit awkward about it, like a little bit. There's always a thing in the back of my mind of like, oh, I hope she doesn't get jealous of this person. Like, there's nothing to worry about at all, but that thought always crosses my mind. And I think a product of that is because, you know, it's less common to be, you know, friends with the opposite sex. But I, you know, I've got a lot of female friends, always have done, and I think it is possible, but um, it is something you still have to navigate, I think, and be reasonable about. Like, for example, if you're with someone and you're spending more time with your female friend than your girlfriend, I can see how that's problematic. I mean, you can argue it any which way, but that just sound. Do you know what I mean? Like it, and also activities as well. Like if you're going like on regular coffee dates with your female friend rather than your partner, I don't know. It depends, you know, because as you said, like there are exceptions to the rule, like someone who's like a family friend or like a brother or sister, or you know, these things influence things. But I think a lot of the time as well, if we're really honest with ourselves, a lot of the time, if we form a connection with the opposite sex and we're attracted to the opposite sex, because I think that's key as well. We have to add that in. Like if you're, let's say, heterosexual and you're attracted to the opposite sex, so you have a friend of the opposite sex. Chances are, when you first became friends with that person, there would have been an initial attraction of some description, not necessarily sexual, but there would have been something there, a reason, like some sort of chemistry that made you interested in them. And then it developed from there. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me because hey, we form friendships in all different types of ways. But then one thing that you highlighted, which I thought was spot on, is well, common interests. Okay, like we really both like this one thing, like this. I don't know, like we're both big wrestling fans, or we're both like into NASCAR, or we're both, I don't know, we love collecting stamps. I don't know. Like we got this common interest, and that's a factor. That is, as you said, if there's no clear goal and you're just friends, well, why are you friends? Like you said, that's intriguing. There's something there. Yeah, it makes you wonder. Like, or at least you have to think about that. If you've not thought about that to yourself, I think that could be dangerous. Maybe.
See, and that's a thing where I believe we generally should have a therapist at some point in our lives just to kind of get maybe every 5 years kind of touchstone for a couple of months with a therapist to because we can't be subjective about ourselves. Honestly, it's difficult to be to be objective about ourselves and our lives and say, oh, you know what? I'm doing this because of X, Y, or Z. You might tell yourself that to justify your reasoning, but why are you honestly doing X, Y, or Z? And it's not relationships wise, it's career wise. Am I having me personally, not Christian, do I have my podcast because I love attention, love being the center of attention and talking about myself? Or is it because I really want to get this off my chest and share my experiences and help guys do X, Y, or Z with relationships? Maybe it's a little bit of both, but I can tell myself, oh, I want to help guys, but no, I'm vain. I am egotistical. And I know that I just like to hear myself talk.
So honest.
Yeah, but I've had 40 something years to be able to realize that and be honest with myself and do it. But most other people either don't see it, don't want to see it, or don't care about it. They just go about their lives oblivious without really a goal or a target for what they want to do and achieve. And crap, there's something else about the dating. Oh, with the pickup artists, guys, if you really like Christian was saying about, don't go in just trying to get the phone number, have a conversation with them. And if it's a crowded bar, get business cards, your name and phone number or name and a contact info, or even just a QR code that gives your name and a phone number or whatever. Just make it fun.
It's interesting.
Introduce yourself. Hey, hi, my name is Gallo. I thought you were cool. I like your outfit. I like your hair. Don't compliment their body. Eyes, maybe, but eyes or hair, makeup, clothes, their style, their earrings, anything, but don't talk about their body. And just say, hey, I thought it was cool. I want to introduce myself. It's kind of crowded and busy. Here's my contact info if you want to have fun sometime. And just walk away. That little air of mystery of just walking away and not hitting on them, just like, hey, you want to have some fun? Well, what does he mean by fun? Does he mean fun or just hang out fun? Like, what's he talking about? That'll you got to stand out. You got to be intriguing. You got to be something fun for them. Because if not, in this day and age, you're not going to stand out.
Okay, I know why, but I want to ask for maybe people that don't know, why do we not comment on a person's body?
So if you don't know, guys, commenting on their body sexualizes them immediately and makes them see or realize that, hey, you're only interested in with their body. Secondly, the commenting on their body, they have no control over it. You know, whether they're large chested or not, whether they have a big butt, whatever their body part that you're complimenting on them on, maybe they're self conscious about it. You know, sure, a lot of girls with large chests bump into things, don't realize it, don't feel it anymore, but they're still self conscious about it because that's the attention they've been getting ever since they started developing. And so that's usually a turnoff for them. Usually women, oh, okay, that's the thousandth time I've heard about, oh, yeah, I'd love to have those on my head or whatever stupid thing you can think of about women's boobs or her ass or her body. She's probably heard it 1,000 times before, you know, you even met her. So, um, that's one reason to avoid it. Another one is it's not original because, again, you're going to be the thousandth person to say something about her body. But if you compliment her style, something that she chose about herself, oh shit, he paid attention to me and he likes something about me that I chose that is something about my style, about personality, or whatever. Maybe he's really interested in me. Maybe this can be more than just sex. Or maybe it can just be sex because, you know, we both are into whatever earring she's got. Maybe she's got some Metallica M earrings and nobody knows, or some weird obscure band symbol or logo that nobody knows and you noticed it. So
This has been educational. It's been informative. It's been fun, most importantly. Massive thank you, Guy. I don't know. I felt I've learned a lot. We've had a great conversation. Um, Final thoughts, I don't know, before we wrap it up.
no, man, it's been a fun conversation. I love coming on here, even when we just kind of touch base on Instagram every now and again. You know, it still feels more personal than the other uh, podcast interviews I've had. Um, you know, so this is why I like keeping in touch with you. And I wish there wasn't so much of a time difference. So I won't take too much of your time or whatever. But yeah, it's been fun, and you know, it feels like a friendship. So I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. I consider you a friend. And yeah, thank you so much for appearing, man. Like I said, learned a lot. Can't wait to have you back on the show again in the future. It will happen. I'll say to all the listeners of the podcast, if you do have questions for Gaio about anything, because as you can see, he's a knowledgeable man in a lot of different areas, got a wealth of experience. Please send them in, and I will put something else together. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of different topics we could talk about. We could even do a follow up to this. Who knows? I'm sure people will have questions, so we'll see.
Or
But yeah.
complaints, probably complaints.
Oh well, I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. This is a lot of this is opinion. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for instance, we're two guys with different experiences discussing relationships and dating. You know, for example, like my core demographic is female, so I know that they'll have a very different kind of perspective on things, approach to things, you know, etc. And it's also why I find it important to like kind of balance things out as well, and kind of, you know, like I'm not all just about the guys, but also like, you know, I think it's important to um, make it like a level playing field. So it's that kind of like, you know, you're adhering to everyone and kind of speaking to everyone and not just like one group or another.
Yeah.
Because dating and relationships are something that we all um, need to learn about and navigate and find a healthy way through it. And um, yeah, I guess my point with this is just like take today's episode as like a discussion about something that we all know very well, and you know, you take what resonates with for you. If you disagree, great, no worries. You know, at the end of the day, it's this is experience that I think there's a lot of stuff that we've discussed today that I think is just how it is, like is fact. But then there's a lot of things that are, you know, based on experience and based on a lot of other factors. You know, like it's what works for one person might not work for another person, and so on and so forth. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. So when you go out into that dating world, you know, consider what works for you, what makes you happy, and try to make that your focus above all else, you know, and then get out there, man, have some fun.
I have a question for your female fans, and just out of curiosity, would they share a man, or would they be okay with a man having multiple girlfriends or girls that he's talking to if he was laser focused when they're together, with the way I explained earlier.
Mm.
Or maybe just say this, like cut this out and make this a Patreon only question. We'll see, whatever. But I'm curious to what the feedback is.
Well, I'll leave it in. Tell you what, in the comments section, either on YouTube, Spotify, or if you're watching this and you want to put it in the Discord, consider Go's question. We'd love to hear your responses and hear what you think. I'm intrigued to know actually. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been an absolute joy as always, and yeah, massive thank you, and thank you to everyone who listened to this show. It's a big boy. It's nearly 3 hours. I can't believe I've taken so much of Guy's time, but
Oh no.
it flies by. I don't know. It's the same as last time. Flies by. Um, just really quickly, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. You know the deal. Your comments, your likes, shares, all these things, it really, really helps the show. Same if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those different places. Leave us a review, leave us a rating. It helps. I'm seeing the views and listens slowly growing. So I think we're starting to reach more people now. And I know it's because of your efforts. So thank you so much, everybody. And of course, don't forget, if you would like to support the show and everything that I do and get yourself access to bonus content, as Garo mentioned, there's a Patreon, patreon.com/Christian Reeve. Go subscribe, get yourself some extra content, get bonus content from the podcast and other things. And most importantly, be safe, be well, and get out there and get dating and have some fun. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.